And it's exactly that focus that Tumza is talking about where we continue. It's looking at the crime in our country. It's a loaded topic, isn't it? Where do you even begin? Now, one of the areas with a very high crime rate in Gauteng is Alexandra. Let's go back once again to eNCA's Aviwe Mtila, who's in Alexandra for us this morning. Aviwe, hello to you. When we spoke to you about an hour ago, we heard from one resident who says that the police know what is going on, but they're just not seeing any action on the ground.
Lack of police visibility or action even is one of the biggest complaints that you'll hear from the residents of Alexandra. In fact, it's a 110-year-old township, and I want to speak to one of the prominent community leaders here, Tata Linda Twala, who's been in Alexandra for the last 77 years. He's seen the spate of crime. He's himself even telling me during the apartheid era in 1986 how his house was bombed and 26 people were killed during that incident. So I want to catch up with someone that really knows the brunt of the crimes and activity that happens here. Baba Twala, thank you for joining us at eNCA. You've seen a lot over the years, but I want to talk to crime at its current stage. What are the biggest headaches here?
Well, the biggest headache in Alexandra is drugs. Our township is riddled by drugs. We may blame some of the community members, but the problem is with drugs, because no person can go and rape an elderly person or do what they do by stealing electricity cable. It's all because of the people that are using drugs. And these drugs are not manufactured in Alexandra. There are people who are bringing these drugs into Alex, taking them into Alex. And their children are in multiracial schools. They dare not smoke drugs, but our children are drowning themselves in drugs. And I still say, what have we done to deserve to live like this? Because 28 years or 29 years down the line, we're still living in squalor. Yet there is land around us. I was listening to JJ Twane and Kupai when they were talking about land. There's land. We've got Limro Park, we've got Frankenwald. We were supposed to de-densify Alexandra. But unfortunately, this is not happening. That is why there's so much crime, because it's a shack on top of another. We are more than 1 million in a square mile, whereas across the road, you won't find 1 million. Now, what does that tell you? It tells you that people need houses. And that is why there's so much crime, because people are unemployed. Unemployment rate in Alexandra is so high. So I just hope that maybe by God's grace, we are going to create jobs and be job creators through We Love Alex, through Alex Makeover. We are hoping that we will succeed in this battle of reducing crime in our area.
And across the road, as Ndate Twala mentions, is Sandton, Africa's golden square mile, the total opposite of what you'd see in Alexandra. In fact, colleague Teddy Mnyembane currently showing you cables that have been stolen here. Mdomkulu, I want to talk about police and their action, even government. Is there enough done when it comes to the reaction of the police to the crime activity that happens in Alexandra?
I won't blame the police that much. The problem is within ourselves. We don't love each other. We are very good at pulling each other down. Because I'll make just an example. When we were to move the lady who stays in Mandela's house some years back, we came to an agreement that we should build a new house. But our own comrades went behind our backs to say, don't move, you're sitting on millions. And that disturbed me a lot, because it means even if we want to see progress in Alexandra, it becomes a bit difficult when there is a stumbling block. Until one day we succeed in this battle of respecting one another. We need people, especially people who once lived in Alex, to come to our rescue, to help us rebuild Alexandra. We need more land. If we can get more land, there'll be less crime in our country. There's a problem.
But are the police effective, Mdomkulu? Because we heard time and again how it's the communities that capture the criminals here and then enforce the beatings that we hear of. Is there adequate police response?
Well, I would say there is, because when this guy was put in a tire, when they were trying to light the tire, I rescued his life. I made sure that they don't do that, and the police came and took that person to the police station. Had I not done that, I think something would have happened, and I'm hoping that as time goes on, the police are going to start working with us, because we know all the hotspot areas where there is more crime, like hijacking of cars, like, people who are stealing cables. And if there were jobs in Alexandra, not in Alexandra, in the whole country, I don't think people would have been stealing electricity cable. We saw some on this media coverage stealing even diesel in pipes. You ask yourself, who are those people? Our own people don't do that. The problem is we need to do things together. I need people who are going to come up and help us to rebuild Alexandra by getting more centers. When I say more centers, we've got a university in Soweto, in Neguruleni, we've got a university in Pretoria, but Alexandra, being mother of all the townships, mother of all the continents, we haven't got a university. We wanted a university in Limbro Park some years back, and we were even at loggerheads with those people, telling them that they prefer to live with their donkeys and cows rather than living with us. Now, it's still a problem in Alexandra. We are on our way out. I'm an elderly person, and I was involved in an accident. It's only this big head, because I just don't want to see our children failing. That is why we are busy with this reading club, where those children who cannot go to multiracial schools, we make sure that they are being taught how to use computers, just to be computer illiterate. And we are also having helicopter rides, where we are making sure that it's not just a jolly ride. We don't want our children to end up being air hostesses. We want them to know the aviation, what takes a plane up. So we want engineers. Just
a last question from me, Mdomkulu. When it comes to being critical of government, I mean, Alexandra is just a stone throw away from Africa's Golden Square Mile. That's Sandton. The working force of Sandton resides in Alexandra, but it's a total contrast in terms of the living conditions. Looking back, 1994, it's a dawn of democracy now, 28 years later. Is there enough that's been done for the people of Alexandra?
There isn't enough. In fact, I'm extending an invitation. The royalties of Sandton, Frankenwald, Marlborough, up to Waterval, that's Alexandra area. I mean, let's put it that way, because Sandton was started in 1975. So we are requesting those guys that the workforce comes from Alex. I know that we've got people that come from Mozambique, maybe Zimbabwe and all that, from the rural areas. But most of the people come from Alex. Within walking distances, you can walk to Sandton without a taxi. But look at our living conditions. And yet Sandton is the hub of South Africa.
Okay, thank you very much. Baba Linda Twala, who's been living in Alexandra for the last 77 years. One of the people that's really seen the majority of what's been happening in Alex. Going deeper into the crime issues of Alexandra, saying that it's a bigger societal challenge. It's a bigger problem of drugs. It's a bigger problem of just the inequalities between your Golden Square Mile, Sandton, and the people that actually work in Sandton and they live in conditions here in Alexandra.
Yeah, we're literally within walking distance if you know the areas at all, how easy it is to move from Alexandra through to Sandton by foot as well. Aviwe Mtila, still part of our crime focus here on eNCA.